from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. And Representative Anna Paulina Luna, Congresswoman from Florida, entered a resolution to censure Adam Schiff for brains today. And he survived. He did survive with the help of some of his Republican friends in Congress. Yep, 20 Republicans, in fact, voted to save Adam Schiff for brains behind. Now, why? I don't know. I'm guessing political opportunities for sure. But the Republican-controlled House was poised to censure Adam Schiff and fine him $16 million for his role in advancing the debunked Russian collusion narrative. You know, that's the one where he said, "Oh, I've got proof. I have the proof. I have the proof." Kind of like Pelosi. You know, you can see what's in the bill once you sign it and it's passed. But of course, nothing ever happened, and he abused the trust that was afforded to him as chairman of the Intelligence Committee, and for behaving dishonestly and dishonorably, according to the document. Now it's a matter of getting Florida Rep. Anna Paulina Luna and her resolution to the floor. They had their vote, and 20 Republicans decided to vote with the Democrats to defend Adam Schiff for brains. Anyway, it is what it is, right? That's just how it goes. I don't know who pulled what political strings. I mean, the easy knee-jerk reaction is to say, well, those 20 people are rhinos. And maybe they are. But the reality to me is it's politics. And when you're talking about politics, you could find the most conservative member and turn to them and say, hey, look, I need you to vote for Schiff. I hate Schiff. But I need you to vote for Schiff. But I hate Schiff. But here's why. If you vote for Schiff, I'll do X, Y, and Z for you, for the people in your district, and I'll help you with that, anti-gun control bill that you wanted to pass so people could open carry in your state. Oh, well, shoot. I want open carry a lot more than I want Adam Schiff's, figurative head on a platter. So people start voting against what would seem to be their best interest. This is how politics has always worked. That's the name of the game. So I don't know the reasoning or the rationale behind that stuff, but that is exactly what happened. And he survived. Adam Schiff has survived this attempt to censor him in the House of Representatives. Anyway, so that's that one. Then there's this one. The Marine that I said, look, we've got to look at all the facts. The guy who was on the train and had the guy in the chokehold and whatnot. And in fact, turns out they did look into it. And the police conducted their investigation, and they contacted the district attorney's office, and an assistant district attorney looked at the case, and they decided to decline prosecution. And then after the fact, Alvin Bragg, and I guess the political pressure that was put on him from somewhere, somehow, decided to change course on that and decided to indict. And they did. And that's the story that's out today. A grand jury has indicted former Marine Daniel Penny for the chokehold killing of a homeless man named Jordan Neely. Now, a couple of days ago, Daniel Penny sat with his lawyers and gave an interview. We have the audio of that. I don't know if we have it queued up yet, but you let me know when we do. And he shared, Daniel Penny, the Marine veteran, shared a few answers to the questions that people had about, did you keep him in the chokehold for 15 minutes? How could you think someone was going to live if you were choking him for 15 minutes? And he gave some excellent answers, using it as a restraint, not as something that was punitive. And it was something that was, I thought, valuable to me, right, in listening to that. But today, he met his fate in terms of the grand jury. I want you to listen to what Daniel Penny had to say, and then I'll tell you what the grand jury had to say. Listen to this.
Some people say that I was holding on to Mr. Neely for 15 minutes. This is not true. I mean, between stops is only a couple minutes. So the whole interaction lasted less than 5 minutes. Some people say I was trying to choke him to death, which is also not true. I was trying to restrain him. You can see in the video there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he's breathing. I'm trying to restrain him from him being able to carry out the threats. And then some people say that this is about race, which is absolutely ridiculous. I didn't see a black man threatening passengers. I saw a man threatening passengers, a lot of whom were people of color. The man who helped restrain Mr. Neely was a person of color. And then a few days after the incident, I read in the papers that a woman of color came out and called me a hero. I don't believe that I'm a hero, but she was one of those people that I was trying to protect.
So there you have it. From his, I had not heard him make any comments as of yet. I heard his lawyers speak. We'd heard media reports, but we hadn't heard him. I had not heard him. In hearing him, that seems very reasonable, very appropriate, and in line with everything else that I've read and heard. And I find it shameful that they're going after this guy the way that they are. Like I said in the beginning, we had to look at the facts, and I think we have. We've looked at the facts, and the investigations were completed. I don't think that they needed to charge him. I still don't think that there's a jury on this planet that will convict this man. I really don't, irrespective of the fact that they're trying to make this into something about race. I just don't believe it'll happen. But that doesn't mean it should be happening anyway. Just because I don't think he can get convicted doesn't mean that we should charge the guy. I said we should look at it, and I think we did. And that's what due process is all about. And the fact that they made a decision to not prosecute him, let him go, and then decided, all right, we're going to change our minds and circle back on that because of likely political pressure. That's really just, this is a man's life, and a man who put his own life on the line for the lives of others on this train when this man said that he was threatening their lives. So I think this is just, it's a horrible thing, because should this happen and succeed, you've now lost your right for any type of self-protection in New York City. There'll be precedent saying if someone gets on a train and threatens to kill you and starts, throwing things at you, that you can't subdue them and to protect yourself, your family, and others around you from bodily injury and harm from this person, because you would be in the wrong. Now, of course, people are arguing, saying, well, that's not what happened. That's exactly what happened. It just happened to be that this gentleman died in the process. But that doesn't change the facts. Anyway, the decision came earlier today. It was made by a group of jurors that were in Manhattan. And Mr. Penny, who's only 24 years old and served this country, now faces one charge of second-degree manslaughter and another charge of criminally negligent homicide, which could put him in jail for up to 15 years. And the lesser of the charges could put him in jail for 4 years. Absolute insanity, in my opinion. Again, I don't believe there's a jury that will convict this man. I don't believe he's done anything wrong. I think he's innocent, but it wouldn't be the first time that we see things go the wrong way. So my thoughts and prayers are with him, and what a bad situation. Plus, there's a bunch of things to talk about today. We've got these publishers that publish woke books, and the question is, are they going to have a Bud Light moment, or will they not? Will they continue with their race-baiting narratives and LGBTQ-infused curriculum, or will they say, you know what, go woke, go broke, let's not sell these books anymore? We're going to find out more straight ahead. Don't move a muscle.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Like many woke publishers in the world's largest education content publisher has made a commitment to embedding anti-racism in their teaching and learning curriculums. And upcoming Heritage Foundation report has shed the light on this. And we're going to get to this today because, you know, the question that we've been asking thus far is, will they have a Bud Light moment, right? If they continue their commitment to wokeness, will America get up and walk away? Now, we learned today, let me just see, just to give you a little context here. This is a story from earlier today. CNBC, Bud Light loses its spot as America's top-selling beer in May in the wake of their boycott fight. Of course, now Modelo has overtaken Bud Light as the top-selling beer in the United States. Unbelievable, right? That's a Mexican beer. Shout out to the Mexicans. You would have thought somebody else would have came in second place and swept in, but no, Modelo. Bud Light sales have sagged following a conservative boycott over its partnership with trans social media influencer Dylan Mulvaney. And this backlash is because Americans are tired of seeing their children be the target, the prey of these predatory practices of infusing these ideological agendas into the mainstream and, moreover, into the public school classroom and into places where it should not be happening, right? And that's really the bottom line. But now you have publishers, including the largest publisher in the country, saying, well, you know, we're going to continue doing that and putting that into U.S. schools and doing what we do in our K through 12 curriculum. And I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea. I do know. I think it's a terrible idea. I don't know what they think this is going to be, if it's a good idea or a bad idea, but we're about to find out because our guest, Jonathan Butcher, is with Heritage Foundation. He's the Will Skillman Senior Research Fellow in Education Policy at Heritage, and he's with us right now. Jonathan Butcher, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
Likewise. So tell us what are the main findings that have come out of this Heritage report on these publishers that are hooked on wokeism?
Well, so remember that Pearson is the largest publisher of college textbooks in the country. They're also, one of the largest education publishers in the world, if not the largest. And so it's not just a matter of what books they publish, it's the commitments that they are making as a corporation because they have a contract with the federal government. They formerly owned either parts or all of Penguin Publishing, the Financial Times, and The Economist. So, clearly this is a corporation, right? It's not just a publisher. And so when they make a commitment as a corporation that everything they produce, and this is what they said, in their editorial guidelines, everything they produce would be committed to anti-racism. They are making a commitment to putting critical race theory in everything that they do. And, I think that there was probably a time 3 or 4 years ago when commitments like this sort of were done to win the applause, right, of the radical left. But now that we know what critical race theory is and what it creates, what we've seen in the past few days is that mysteriously some of the documents that said this, that Pearson had produced, have disappeared from the web.
Oh, interesting. So do you think this is because they're trying to cover their tracks, or they're maybe considering an about face, or they're doubling down?
Well, all I can say is that, when I wrote my report over the last few months, it was easy to find their editorial guidelines. It was easy to find. They had a set of videos called Unwritten that had various guests talking about some pretty radical ideas and talking about, for example, the history of protest movements. And then, over yesterday afternoon and into today, as my report was released and they received an embargoed copy, suddenly some of the things that I had footnoted had disappeared. Now, of course, we have the web archive copies of them,
sure.
but perhaps they had, June 13th, 2023 is the date at which they would, be revamping their website all along. But something tells me that it may have had something to do with letting the public know, what was really available on their website.
All right. Well, listen, I love to give the benefit of the doubt, and my hope is that, and I'm probably a sucker for doing it, but my hope is that they said, "Wow, all that's happening. Well, we better get to the bottom of this and start cleaning this up." Not as a cover up, but more so maybe we shouldn't be that overt in what we're doing. I don't know, wishful thinking on my part. Let's talk about some of the things you found, Jonathan.
Sure. So Pearson has a huge catalog, right? I mean, they have thousands of books that they release, but they also have a set of diversity, equity, and inclusion training materials that are available on their website. And these are the same kinds of materials that have caught the attention of governors in places like Florida and Texas, and where lawmakers there have said that public money should not be used for DEI programs. Research has found that DEI programs are highly ineffective at changing people's opinions. They do not make people more tolerant. In fact, they often can create resentment among people that participate in them. And look, these findings are the results of hundreds upon hundreds of surveys going back for quite a long time that show that DEI, these attempts at training in anti-bias programs, are highly ineffective. And so, and yet Pearson is producing a significant amount of material that trains both mainly educators, right, in this material. They also have clearly textbooks that are available on their site that talk about, quote, gender as opposed to biological sex. And so the campaign to replace biological sex with gender is in the materials that were available or are available on their website. These are all things that just in the past couple of years, parents have become more aware of and are saying, hey, look, we don't want this used either, in elementary schools or middle schools, or for many have said in surveys, even high schools.
Wow. Well, let me just remind everybody that we're on with Jonathan Butcher. He's a senior research fellow in education policy at the Heritage Foundation, and he's the author of Splintered. Make sure you catch a copy of that as well. I want to continue this discussion because I'm curious to know if they know that DEI is not very effective, then why even sell it, right? And I guess if it's selling, then there's a question there as to why are public schools buying something that likely doesn't work, and is this just another way to make money? Is it forget about the ideology? It's just make some cash because we can, like Al Sharpton and the race hustlers do in the name of racism when there's no racism to prevent. And I'm not saying racism doesn't exist. I'm just saying oftentimes we see a similar situation in that world. So we're going to continue our discussion because I'm really interested in learning a little bit more about that with Jonathan Butcher, Senior Research Fellow in Education Policy at the Heritage Foundation. Plus, you're welcome to give us a call. 833-4-VALDES is the phone number. 833, the number 4-VALDES. And at Rich Valdez with an S on all of the social media. Don't go anywhere. Keep it locked right here. We're just getting started, and we're coming right back.
America, this is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez, and we are on with our guest, Jonathan Butcher, Senior Research Fellow in Education Policy at the Heritage Foundation, and he's discussing his latest report where they've discovered that the largest publisher of educational materials, Pearson, is unabashedly saying they're promoting critical race theory and other woke agenda teachings and putting this in their K through 12 materials for public schools and as part of government contracts as well. And before the break, something that we mentioned was that these DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings don't seem to work on the people that are taking them. And so my question became, if they don't work, why are we doing them, right? Why would anybody participate in something like that? And I don't know the answer. Jonathan Butcher.
Well, I mean, I think what we can speculate is that they, those that do these programs feel as though if we emphasize the differences between people, we can make people somehow more tolerant, right, or respectful of the differences between people who are not like them. But I think what we found is that when you only emphasize the differences between people, you give people nothing to share, right? There's no sense of national identity that people can cling on to, right? And share as a commonality. And if we only talk about our differences, it doesn't give us any way that we can begin to communicate with each other. I think that, and this is not just conservatives who are recognizing the failure of DEI programs. I mean, the New York Times, the New Yorker Magazine, Washington Post, Education Week, McKinsey and Company. I mean, lots of both publications and, consulting groups have also, sort of released either articles or, published editorials saying that these programs are not effective. And so I think because there is this, there's a very deep-seated feeling of guilt, I think, that surrounds race in the United States, and appropriately, so given, slavery, given the Jim Crow era and all of those things, no one wants to be called racist, and no one should commit racist acts. But I think when race is lobbed at people, right, when you are accused of being racist if you do not agree with something in a DEI program or DEI agenda, why then, you're called racist and you're called intolerant. And no one wants to feel that. And so suddenly we found ourselves just simply agreeing, right, with what DEI, what the DEI orthodoxy has been saying. And that's why writers like Robin DiAngelo and Ibram X. Kendi, until recently, had gone unquestioned, right? But I think now as we look closer at what they are really teaching and what they are really advocating for, we see it is discriminatory.
Yeah, I've looked at some of the Ibram X. Kendi work, and I have to say, I think it's, I don't know, to put it mildly, I think he's a fake, a phony, and a fraud. I don't believe he even believes what he's saying in his book. Maybe he does, and maybe I'll have to eat those words one day. But how do we ignite an entire movement on this notion that if you're not an anti-racist, then you're a, and I've heard this presented so many times as if it's some sort of a false equivalency, this binary situation where you're either an anti-racist or you're a racist. How do we get to this place?
Well, I'll say this. I think that those that are trying to push the radical gender agenda, which is a close cousin, I think, of these racial discussions that we're having, because critical race theory and critical gender theory are both applications of, what is known as critical theory, which is a worldview unto itself that traces its origins back to Marxism, discussions of, power relations, and that the world is sort of a zero-sum game between identity groups vying for power. All of that is tied in here. And I think that the advocacy for teaching young children, especially, the ideas of radical gender theory is more than Americans are willing to accept. And I think, as you mentioned Bud Light and as you were introducing the show, and I think that and what's happened with Target and things like that, just demonstrates that this is, that they've overstepped their bounds in thinking that America's ready to accept the idea that we should teach young children that, they should deal with their problems by saying they are not comfortable in the body in which they were born. And that, suddenly leads to discussions of, hormone treatments and puberty blockers at young ages and, irreparable changes to their, sexual functions and everything. So that, I think, has crossed the line at which I think the public is ready to just go along with it. And I think parents are now standing up and saying, we won't have any of this. Insiders, right, are exposing what's being done in some of these hospitals, and as well as whistleblowers in, both curriculum companies as well as, public institutions and branches of government that are trying to push gender ideology. So it's a very hopeful sign. It's also hopeful that we see lawmakers today enacting very thoughtful proposals that protect young children from being not just exposed to radical gender ideas, but having to actually go along with it. So I think we can see, I think, some positive responses from this now.
Yeah, and I agree. Look, I think this critical gender theory, or what you're calling this radical gender theory, it's definitely born of Marxism and trying to group people into individuals to create this, us versus them type of scenario. And I get that. And it's the same scenario with the anti-racism stuff. And I'm not necessarily against people being against racism. I want to clarify that for anybody in the audience that's just tuning in.
Yeah, no, of course.
I appreciate an alternative view and a discussion, especially at the collegiate level. Like this woman who wrote the 1619 Project. I don't agree with what she's writing and her take on what America is and its founding, but I think that's a great discussion to have in a college classroom and duke it out and use the facts. I think when it's introduced in earlier grades and there's no discussion on it and no other side is presented and you're just telling a bunch of fourth graders that America really started in the 1600s and it was because it started solely to be a slave state, I think this is problematic, and this is where I draw the line. So I just wanted to clarify that for myself. Now, I know you
Certainly.
also have written. Go ahead.
Well, sorry, I was just going to add. I mean, the problem with the 1619 Project are the errors that are within it that they have not addressed. So, they are not just taking a different perspective. I mean, the essay in particular about the history of capitalism is rife with errors and research that has been debunked previously that they published anyway. They also have, an explanation of the colonists' reasons for fighting the Revolutionary War in part due to slavery that has also been widely debunked by even people that the 1619 Project hired to be reviewers themselves. So, 1619 is the whole thing. It has a number of mistakes in it that the New York Times didn't address, and there was a really fascinating back and forth on the editorial page with some letters from some scholarly historians who wrote to the editors and said, "Hey, look, you've got these errors," and the editorial board wrote back and said, "Well, we acknowledge that there may have been slaves that were brought to Florida by, the Spanish explorers, but we're going to stick with the narrative that we have about the first slaves arriving in Jamestown." And that's not history, right? I mean, you can't have your own truth, right?
Well, I'm not the Will Skillman Senior Research Fellow in Education at the Heritage Foundation like Jonathan Butcher is. But I am Rich Valdez from the radio, and I will tell you the New York Times laid cover for a piece of propaganda. And if you want to take propaganda and debate it at the college level, I'm happy to do it, right? I just don't think that they should pass it off as fact and truth or anything that's, like a legit piece of academic research. And that's just, it's lamentable that that's happening, but that's where we are. And I think it sucks, to put it plainly. Now, I wanted to ask you about your book before we run out of time, but we're going to take a pause here and come back and talk about Unsplintered because I'm curious to know A, why you chose the title, and B, a little bit about it. So don't go anywhere, folks. We're on with Jonathan Butcher. We're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez. We're on with Jonathan Butcher. He's the author of Splintered, Critical Race Theory and the Progressive War on Truth. Jonathan Butcher, tell us about the namesake of the book.
Sure. So critical race theory is meant to disrupt the American system, right? They are skeptical of the rule of law. They are skeptical of the foundational ideas behind freedom, opportunity, equality under the law. And they say as much, right? They write this in their foundational writings. And so they are trying to drive a wedge between Americans by having some view everything in public and private life through the lens of race. And when you do that, you separate people into different groups, right? You're either the oppressed or you are an oppressor, and that's based on your skin color. And so this causes a splintering, right, of a sense of national identity. And I think if we are going to give the next generation hope for the future and an understanding of what the American dream means, well, we have to give them a sense, a shared sense of what our national identity is.
Yeah, and you know what? This is a fascinating topic, and one that I've always enjoyed, being that my parents were born in Puerto Rico, born U.S. citizens. I was born a citizen, and it's an interesting thing because, of all the places where you have Marxists doing what they do, they take a very different approach in Puerto Rico than they do in most other Spanish-speaking territories, because they feel that if they overhype the European colonization angle, that it'll go better for them. And that's always the angle that they have. So it's very anti-American, very anti-imperialist. It's almost like stealing a page out of Che Guevara's speech book. And voila, you have the modern Marxist movement in Puerto Rico and in the Bronx, New York. And I would suspect now in Orlando, Florida, too, wherever there's large groups of people of Americans of Puerto Rican heritage. And it's always been interesting to me because I've seen research on this. And when they study how Marxists try to penetrate Latin America or Hispanic groups, they always leave Puerto Ricans separate because they feel you need this different approach, which I just found fascinating. And what you're talking about is really that on a large scale on how they've tried to split the national identity of somebody. So somebody who, in my family situation, people born in Puerto Rico that love the United States, serve in the United States military, pledge allegiance to the flag and all of that stuff, but yet they want you to hate America. And it becomes a difficult proposition to say, well, hold on a second, I like America. We're American. And it's very difficult. And this is, I think, what's happening with a lot of people. But some people decide to sip the Kool-Aid and they decide to say, yeah, no, you're right. This is a horrible racist country that's focused on capitalism instead of focusing on blah, blah, blah. And we've gotten to where we are with these, in my opinion, very weak progressive ideas that have no substance to them. But, sometimes all sizzle and no steak gets you in the door with some people.
Well, sure. And we have to remember what are they really selling? I mean, they're selling the idea that public policy, that government should create equal outcomes for especially people who are in ethnic minorities. And the only way you can do that is through coercion, right? I mean, you have to take something from someone who has earned it and you have to give it to someone who has not, right? You are giving people certain things, certain benefits that regardless of their choices or their behavior. And when you do that, you have some sort of controlling class that is manipulating the markets, that is manipulating the outcomes for people's lives. And when that ruling class agrees with you, then it's good. But when they don't, it's bad, right? And so this is why, socialist systems and totalitarian systems don't work. And I think what we're finding in the United States is that you're not going to be able to meld these two things together, right? You're not going to be able to sort of take critical race theory, add a little bit of, democracy and capitalism and hope it all comes out right.
All right, Jonathan Butcher, I'm going to let everybody know that they can check out your report through Heritage at heritage.org. Let them know where they can get a copy of the book, Splintered.
Sure. You can buy it on Amazon. It's available on most booksellers, Barnes & Noble. Splintered, Critical Race Theory and the Progressive War on Truth.
All right, folks, that's Jonathan Butcher. If you want, you can call him Butch. I will from now on forward. He's a new friend of the program, and we're looking forward to having you on again, Butch. Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
All right, take care. All right, he was a good sport with the nickname. We appreciate that. And, folks, we're going to get to your calls and more straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. Plus, we're going to talk about the Soros agenda. What exactly is going on? There's been a passing of the baton from George Soros to his son, Alexander Soros. who might be more radical and nutbaggy than the old man. So we're going to talk about that. Plus, IBM is replacing thousands of jobs with AI, artificial intelligence. We're going to get your calls and some conversation on that as well. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number, 833, the number 4-VALDEZ. And you can also chime in online at Rich Valdez with an S on all of the social media. Let's go to Michigan, check in with our friend Kim. She's listening online. Rich Valdez, AmericaAtNight.com, by the way, if you want to listen online. Kim, what's on your mind?
Hi, Rich. I just wanted to say that I think it's going to be hard to get rid of this critical race theory as long as Merrick Garland holds his job and his son-in-law. This is his business. He sells this to the school systems, I guess all over the country. So
I remember that when that story broke in October of, I think, 2021, he had started an education company. He was one of the co-founders. The gentleman that's married to Merrick Garland's daughter, so his son-in-law. And I remember at the time there were a lot of people very upset because they were selling about 23,000 schools critical race theory curriculum. And they were saying that, there was some sort of connection. And that was when, at the same time, that they were saying that parents that were critical of critical race theory, critical gender theory, anything that, had to do with any of these woke agendas, they were saying, that Garland put the threat tag on them of being violent domestic extremists and domestic terrorists, because if you went against it, you were harming his son-in-law's business. It's a plausible thing, but definitely a bad look for him. And then we find out that the actual memo that they said that the National School Boards Association sent them really wasn't from the National School Boards Association, but kind of originated in-house with the DOJ, and they kind of went along with it, which, kind of coached them into writing it so that they could create this threat tag. And I think that's messed up. But the company you were talking about is Panorama Education. And the gentleman that you're talking about is Zan Tanner, Kim.
Oh, that's Merrick Garland's son-in-law, that Zan Tanner. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Just another good reason to remove Merrick Garland's job from him.
Listen, from your lips to God's ears, I'd love to have somebody that was less politically motivated and less sour and fixated on being so political because he never got his job as a Supreme Court justice. And I think because he was blocked by McConnell, he's taking it out on any Republican he can. So, he had to settle for the measly AG job. Come on, Merrick Garland, put your big boy pants on and do your job for your country. Anyway, Kim, thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Straight ahead, we're going to talk about George Soros, his agenda, the passing of the baton, and so much more. Plus your calls, 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. and welcome to the program. It's the Wednesday edition, and I want to, wish everybody a very happy Flag Day. Of course, today is Flag Day, which means it's also the 45th president's birthday. Happy birthday to Donald Trump, who I like to call Donaldus Magnus El Trompito, the 45th president, wishing him a very happy birthday as well. We also heard news out of New York City that a grand jury has convened, and Daniel Penny, the Marine veteran that tried to defend everybody on the subway car he was on by subduing the man that was yelling he was going to kill everybody, and then that individual died while he was being subdued. He was indicted today on 2 counts, one of criminally negligent homicide and 1 charge of manslaughter in the 2nd degree. One charge holds a max of 15 years, the other a max of 4 years. So we're going to see how that goes. It seems unfortunate, but that is the case in New York City for Daniel Penny. Then we've got 20 Republicans that sided with Democrats to table the censure on Adam Schiff. Representative Anna Paulina Luna from Florida introduced a measure to censure Adam Schiff for the lies he told during the Russiagate fiasco, saying while he was chair of the of the Intelligence Committee, saying that he had the proof. He had the proof, only for all of us to find out at the end of all of this that there was no proof, because none of it happened, because all the reports were fake. The dossier was fake. There was no tape or video of President Trump engaging with Russian prostitutes or anything like that. There were all sorts of things that were rumored. All of it was fake, and it was paid for by the law firm that was contracted by both the Democrat National Committee and the Hillary Clinton for President campaign. And that was something that was brought to light by both the facts and by the report that was recently issued by the special counsel. So the 20 Republicans, I will name them a little bit later in the 3rd hour, just so you know who they are. And some other news, right? In addition to Flag Day and all that stuff, we've got George Soros. He's handing over control of his $25 billion foundation to his son, Alexander Soros. And this has been reported for the last couple of days. And as you've heard for years, George, and if you haven't, you're hearing it for the first time. But George Soros is this interesting fellow, this Hungarian-American billionaire that loves to put his money into American politics to control these outcomes. And they've never been conservative issues. They've always been kind of progressive, left-wing issues and candidates and movements. And I feel like his son is not only a chip off the old block, but he might be even more radical. If you thought that wasn't a thing, I think it is. But I want to get to the bottom of that with our guest, Dr. Rachel Ehrenfeld. She's the author of The Soros Agenda, and she's here to break it down. Doc, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. So let's talk a little bit about your book, The Soros Agenda. I know that in your work as founder and president of the New York-based American Center for Democracy and the Economic Warfare Institute, you've had a lot of opportunity to see the damage of the Soros agenda over the years, and now you've documented them in your book. Tell us about it.
I laid out in the book, I describe his plan. When did he started with it here in the United States? He tried he had some experiments in other countries before, and apparently settled on what would be the best for the United States. And unfortunately, we see that he was right. Anyway, I documented not only the plans, but I also described the strategy and the tactics he has been using in order to implement them. And it's early on, back in 1996, I wrote that unchallenged, Soros will be able to change the political landscape of the United States. This was in the Wall Street Journal and in other papers where I repeated the same thing.
nobody paid attention. Unfortunately, he did. And why did I say that at the time? Because the first experiment he did was to try and bring about drug legalization in the United States. At the time, in the early 1990s, people looked at drug addiction as unacceptable behavior, and it was unthinkable that anyone would try to legalize drugs. There was a little pushback from Arizona, so he changed his plan and he adjusted it, and he said, okay, so let's go for medical marijuana. This is compassionate, this will help people, people will be more willing to pay attention and probably join. And he wanted really to test the resilience of the values of American people and the laws. And unfortunately, he was successful. He used an interesting tactic, which he applied on other issues as well, which is to do grassroots activities and change the laws locally, not all over the country, but go to states, cities to change regulations, to massage laws or change the laws somewhat, and he was successful. And he didn't really face much opposition, which was not a good sign, and enabled him really to continue to do other things, which brought us to create chaos, which brought us to where we are today.
Wow. Folks, let me just remind you that we're on with Dr. Rachel Ehrenfeld. She's the author of The Soros Agenda. Now, Dr. Ehrenfeld, in the moment or two that we have remaining, let everybody know how they can follow the work you're doing and where they can purchase a copy of your book.
They can go on and look up the American Center for Democracy's website, which is acdemocracy.org. It's one word, acdemocracy.org. They will also find there a lot of material about Soros and where to purchase the book, not only in the United States, but in the UK and even Australia. And also, it's, of course, available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc. They will also find on the website, they will find other materials, many articles that I have written over the years about Soros' activities against the United States and in other places in the world to pursue his globalist idea, which aims to create, I guess, so you can call it Sorostan. Mm-hmm. That's what, there is a lot of material about that, his involvement with different Democrat-run governments here, and the different issues that he pursued over the years. I didn't pay too much attention to the exact sum of money he had given here and there and elsewhere, because you cannot find actually the exact figures. His organization was ranked as the least transparent organization, any think tank in the United States and from other big organizations in the United States. His Open Society Foundation was ranked as the least transparent. So following the money, it's important, but it's not accurate. There's much more.
Well, Doc, I want to thank you for sharing all of that with us. A lot to chew on there. Dr. Rachel Ehrenfeld, she's author of The Soros Agenda. Pick up a copy on Amazon. Pick up two. Give one to a friend. If you don't know what George Soros is up to, you have to know what's going on, and it's all laid out in The Soros Agenda. I would make sure you check that out. Thank you again, Dr. Ehrenfeld, for joining us tonight. And, when I talk about something that's a lot to chew on, not just George Soros and the American body politic and all the problems we have with our own supervillains from Hungary, but there are other things that we have to chew on, like Father's Day that's around the corner. And when Father's Day comes, I know what I like, right? Even when it's not Father's Day, I know what I like. And when I like a big, juicy steak, that's what I used to do with my old man. We'd go out and enjoy a steak or throw one out on the barbecue in the back, which is really what he liked because he didn't like going out too often. He was, a man's man, or as some would say, a manly man. And he enjoyed just spending time with the family in the backyard with the people that he loved. And that's why you got to get your dad what he really wants. Get him Omaha steaks. They're perfectly aged, always tender, and guaranteed to be delicious. Now, the way you do it, putting a smile on the big guy's face, here's how you do it. You go to omahasteaks.com and use promo code GRILL, GRILL. You're going to save $30 off your qualifying order. You can choose from a variety of mouth-watering packages that include the fork tender bacon wrapped filet mignon, any of the other gourmet grillables they have. They have great gourmet there, like the air-chilled boneless chicken breasts, their burgers, jumbo franks, and many more. Don't forget to save room for dessert. Why? Well, because most of these gift packages come with 4 delicious caramel apple tartlets. I'm getting hungry just thinking about this stuff. So go to omahasteaks.com, use code GRILL, and check out the offer for $30 off. This is going to be an unforgettable gift for Dad, and it's guaranteed to make his day. $30 off. Keep that in mind. It's Father's Day. Your dad wants a steak, get him one. Don't miss this. Whether he's your dad, father-in-law, or just a father figure, he's a guy who's always there, and he was always ready to step up when you needed him the most. So this Father's Day, show him how much you love him with the only gift that's as unforgettable as he is, a mouth-watering perfection of a steak from Omaha Steaks. You got to get it from the leader. Omaha Steaks makes it easy to give Dad what he really wants. So order today and get $30 off with promo code GRILL. And every purchase is backed by their unconditional money-back guarantee.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. And the industry publication for talk radio is a magazine called Talkers Magazine. You may have heard about it before on this program, or you may have heard Jimbo talk about it in the past. He was very involved with Talkers and their annual conference, Talkers, which I attended recently, and it was a real blessing, a real honor to be able to share a little bit about my career path in as a talk radio host in the broadcast industry. And the editorial board for Talkers Magazine announced today the 2023 edition of its annual feature, The 100 Most Important Radio Talk Show Hosts in America, also known as the Heavy 100, the Talkers Heavy 100. And it's been posted as of this afternoon. Now, this is an annual ranking of talk radio hosts undertaken by Talkers editors with input from industry leaders, and it's based on a combination of hard and soft factors, including courage, effort, impact, longevity, potential, ratings, recognition, revenue, service, talent, and uniqueness. It is as much subjective art as mathematical science and intended to be a dimensional snapshot of the national talk radio industry at this given moment, with an emphasis on the news talk format. Candidates for the Heavy 100 must be working a regularly scheduled professional show on the air at a minimum of one terrestrial or satellite radio station at the time of publication. Talkers Magazine executive editor Kevin Casey says, quote, "This feature remains one of the most challenging undertakings for the editors. There are so many quality talk radio hosts working at stations in major markets all the way down to the smallest outlets serving intimate communities. Winnowing that field to the 100 most important is very difficult, but it is a challenge we take very seriously. We're excited to publish this year's Heavy 100 and to congratulate those fine hosts who've made the list. And then I'm reading this from Talkers Magazine, and then there's a link to see the Heavy 100 here. Now, to my surprise and to my great honor, I have been listed on this list of the top most important radio hosts in America, the top 100. So I just wanted to thank Michael Harrison, who we've interviewed on this program, as well as the editorial board, Kevin Casey, and everybody else at Talkers for their consideration, and all of my colleagues, anybody who's had a hand in this. I'm grateful for it. I could never have gotten here if it wasn't for the excellent people that have really taught me this business. And there's many of them, but the ones that I talk about often, Richard Cementa. He's known as Mr. Producer from the Mark Levin Show. Of course, the great one himself, Mark Levin, who taught me so much about radio in the 5 years that I worked with him. John Batchelor, a colleague and now a competitor, who taught me a lot about this business. He's a great man. Curtis Sliwa, who's been on this program as well. And many others. Kevin McCullough, who actually made me think I was crazy enough to get into talk radio many years ago. And there's really so many others. Sean Hannity, Linda McLaughlin, Sean Hannity's producer, who's given me some great advice along the way. Of course, my guys that are here in the studio tonight, Alexander Hinton and Tom Delac, also known as Count Delacula. And of course, last but not least, the late, great Jim Bohannon, who shared some amazing advice with me before he went to be with the Lord. And I'm grateful. And if there's anybody I forgot along the way, program directors, Dave Labrosi, Chad Lopez, so many people, the folks at Cumulus, of course, Kevin Delaney, Teresa Gage, so many people, Suzanne Grimes, a lot of people to thank. I'm grateful. I've never been on a list like this before. And you don't have to give me more than half of a reason to throw a party and celebrate something. I'm always looking for something to celebrate. So now I have something to celebrate. And maybe we'll celebrate it in a couple of different cities so that we can have the listeners involved too. We'll see how that plays out. But I wanted to share it with you, all the audience, because without you, none of this is possible. So, of course, thank you to each and every one of you that listen to this program and support what we do. Anyway, we're going to continue with our interviews and our commentary straight ahead. Our phone number, 833, the number 4, Valdez, 833-4-Valdez. And we're now going to talk about how IBM is replacing thousands of jobs with artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about that straight ahead. Don't go anywhere. 833-4-Valdez is the phone number. It's America at Night. I'm Rich Valdez, and we're coming right back.
Call now, 833-4-Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. And ABC News is reporting that the European Parliament is ready to pass a landmark AI, artificial intelligence, piece of legislation. Now, this is a piece of legislation that would govern AI. The European Parliament approved this landmark legislation that aims to regulate the use of AI. It's known as the AI Act. And the idea is to promote human-centric and trustworthy AI, introducing what they call obligations for providers and those deploying AI systems, and proposing bans on any intrusive and discriminatory use of the AI technology. Now, I'm of two minds on AI pretty much at any given time, right? I think it's entertaining and interesting to take a look at, but at the same time, this stuff can be really crazy, right? There's so much that we see. We've heard about IBM and what they're doing. They've paused their hiring. We've also heard about 8,000 new jobs that are going to be replaced with AI. And these are concerns that I think a lot of people have, but I've always likened those to the icebox, right? Before the refrigerator, there was the icebox and a guy that delivered a big slab of ice that went inside a wooden box. And that was how people kept their food cool until the advent of the refrigerator. And the Iceman was out of work. So I realized that technology is always going to replace somebody's job. However, my concerns are over deep fakes and all of that type of crazy where people are going to say, oh, I didn't say that. That was just an AI fake thing that said that. I never said such a thing. And people may be tempted to believe it and allow people to be duplicitous in nature. And those are just one of the things that I think are coming to mind. But I want to get to the bottom of that with somebody you may have seen on CNBC, Josey Parks. He's an entrepreneur, blue-collar tech evangelist, and he's just an expert on all of this stuff, machine learning and AI. Josey Parks, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
You bet. So let's dig into this as we hear that IBM is going to be replacing thousands of jobs with AI. And again, I don't think IBM's alone. I think lots of people are doing this. Because of the economy, we're seeing a lot of cutbacks on jobs, thousands of jobs at Amazon, thousands in lots of places. But I feel that whenever possible, it's going to be the most cost-effective solution for them, that if they can replace them with a robot or with AI, they're going to. So I don't know that we can necessarily stop that, but what's your take on this whole thing?
Yeah, I think it's interesting times. And at the end of the day, our God-given abilities is that we adapt, right? So we've always adapted. You were talking about, the icebox. I think about, we all used to be farmers and ranchers. That's what built this country. That's where it started. And we adapted. Think about when the tractors came out and people were so worried about that. And all it did was enhance that and make you perform to a much higher standard, get way more output. It's even with calculators. People were really worried about that. Now there's technology that you can take a picture of a math problem and it tells you how it got there and gives you the answer. So these things speed us up. And so whenever you think about humans and what's happening in the augmentation with AI, it's taking all the bad attitudes, sick days, vacations, just all the things that happen to us humans, and it takes those elements out and it inputs all of this new intelligence that is structured, streamlined, and predictable. And that is what is that's the reason that these big businesses want to use this, because it takes a lot of the guesswork and uncertainty out. This is bringing certainty to their business. And think about, we are calling in on sick days. Do you think AI is going to actually call in on a sick day? No.
So you're looking at the positive aspects, and I think there are plenty. What do you think about the negative aspects, and how do we mitigate some of that?
Yeah, that's always, what we want to think about. I just think that the human element is what's going to cause us to succeed with this. But, this AI, it can reason, learn, plan, it can make decisions, very similar to a human. So it's definitely going to take a lot of Americans out of work, and they'll be significantly impacted. Some people don't want to work. They would rather just collect a check and sit at home or live a good life, hanging out with people, and they don't really care. So I think it's going to take a lot of jobs out, but the people that want to pursue excellence, I look at personal excellence, that is the responsibility of every American. And so if we're going to succeed with this, we have to pursue that, but a lot will not. A lot of jobs will get augmented, and I see a lot of pain and suffering coming with this. But I also see, just like we had the Industrial Revolution, this technology revolution that's coming, it's going to make us perform at a much higher standard. All these teachers saying, don't use Chat GPT, don't do this. That is a huge disadvantage now, because you have to understand how to problem solve. You have to understand how to take information, dissect it, what you think is true, your truth, right? Because there's so much misinformation and BS out there that you have to figure out really how to use critical thinking, and you have to be an expert with questioning it. and trying to figure out other sources. And that's one of the big problems I see with this is all the bias and, the way that these are coded and all the data that's fed into it, it's all controlled by other people. These are algorithms that someone wrote. So humans are basically enrolling in these algorithms. And if they don't learn how to properly navigate, it's treacherous.
So what do you think eventually happens with the governmental response to this? We're seeing the European Union roll out a plan. What do you think happens in the United States? Does the U.S. try to regulate AI? Or does it just become a debate that they talk about regulating AI but do nothing about it, kind of like cryptocurrency? Or do you think it actually happens?
No, I really hope that, I'm not for government regulations, but, if this isn't in, some type of safeguard, it's going to go rogue. And, there's an arms race with it. And you have all of these technology companies that are doing their very best to control, manipulate, and to bring the outcomes they want. And so we have to have some form of government regulation. Everyone has to pursue that. And it's also, a lot of government regulations are absolutely ridiculous and make no sense. Just like the one you're mentioning, the way that they're looking at that is like, hey, if AI is a part of your product, you need to notify us. We need to do this, that, and like everything is going to have AI in it. Like, your smartphones have had it for a long time. Everyone, 99% of all Americans engage with AI already. So there's nothing new. And so I just think that, we have to really understand the power, the implications, the transformation, the speed, and get serious about like, look, we need government regulations. Both sides need to come together like never before, because if not, the amount of control and the ease of it is just it's insane, and it scares me. And so I'm all for government regulations and really bringing the aisles together and saying, hey, look, guys, we have to figure out how to get started. So what is the worst end result? And that's really what everyone goes to, and you have to start with that. It's like, how do we keep Terminator from showing up and taking over?
Yeah, that is the question at hand, folks. We're on with Josey Parks, and you might have seen him on CNBC. He is a blue collar tech evangelist, and he's a thought leader on AI and machine learning. Josey Parks, I want to thank you for being with us. Let everybody know how they can keep up to speed with the work that you're doing and everything that is coming down the road for you.
Yeah, so joseyparks.com. I haven't updated that site in some time. I've been really focused on products and solving problems. I've got different home improvement companies that I own and technology that I leverage for the home improvement industry. And so, RFX is a company that I have residential fulfillment experience, and we do instant quoting. We provide national fulfillment with products. But, I'm just here to share what I think is happening with AI and the blue collar opportunity. I think the trades is the absolute best industry for Americans to focus in on. We're losing our workforce. We need them more than ever before. And so come back to the trades, because that's what built America. That's what's going to continue to build America.
Outstanding. Check them out at joseyparks.com, folks, joseyparks.com. Josey, I want to thank you for being with us. I appreciate the insight.
Thanks.
You got it. All right, folks, more to come straight ahead. There's some interesting developments as we continue our discussion on AI. There are scientists now, 42% have measured this, that CEOs are now saying AI could destroy humanity in 5 to 10 years. This sounds like the climate alarmist to me. The world is ending in 12 years and AI is going to destroy the world now, humanity. According to them, 42% of these CEOs say AI could destroy humanity in 5 to 10 years. I think that's crazy, but we're going to take a look at this article and your calls. 833, the number 4, Valdez, 833-4-Valdez.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-Valdez. That's Valdez with an S. 832-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. We're going to go to your calls and more. 833, the number 4, Valdez. But I wanted you to hear this headline again. Listen to this. 42% of CEOs believe that AI could destroy humanity in 5 to 10 years. Let's go to Kenneth. He's in Belvoir, Wisconsin, WCLO. Kenneth, you're on with Rich Valdez. Welcome.
Rich, that's Beloit, Wisconsin. I'm sorry.
All right. Well, we use the French pronunciation here, so we go with Belvoir. But go right ahead.
Okay, sure. It is French. But I'm thinking about when they had the investigations of Facebook, and the senator asked, how do you guys make your money? And the point I'm making is that they're not going to, because they don't understand what the hell's going on, anything is not going to happen until some crisis develops, until something really bad happens.
Yeah, until the proverbial substance hits the proverbial fan, then they'll say, "Oh, we're going to have to regulate this because this just caused a heck of a lot of problems for X, Y, and Z, and for so and so." I think you're onto something. I feel like it's also difficult for the government to figure out where to put their finger on it. I'm sure they'd like to regulate just about everything and anything they could, and the problem is, while they may want to regulate everything, there's still, I think, people within the government that realize we don't want to overregulate anything, right? But then there's this fear that, you could use the power of AI for bad instead of using it for good. And it becomes quite an interesting question. And I guess, originally I thought you could use some of the rules that would apply with anything else related to plagiarism or piracy in terms of stealing intellectual property, because I think that's a big concern as well, where people just create fake everything, just going to ChatGPT, fake term papers, fake this, fake that. But I think there's more deep fakes, using somebody's voice to create a fake commercial, and now you're taking someone's livelihood away. So I think that the existing laws, if you apply them towards this, could work. But I think there's other areas I haven't even thought of yet. And I think that's where it gets really tricky. But I think you bring up a good point. There probably won't be any action taken until somebody has a problem, and then politicians will get involved and say, yeah, you know what, you're right. We got to look at this. Yeah. Well, thank you, Kenneth. I appreciate it. From Beloit, also known as Belvoir, Wisconsin, WCLO au revoir, as they say in French. Now, let me continue with this article because I think it's fascinating here, right? And this one of the guys here, the godfather of AI, he's on with Jake Tapper on CNN, and his argument here is that a lot of people are saying this is going to happen. 42% of CEOs surveyed at the Yale CEO Summit this week say that AI has the potential to destroy humanity in 5 to 10 years. And that's according to those results. And that's and the gentleman speaking with Jake Tapper is Yale professor Jeffrey Sonfeld. And this is what he said in a phone interview referring to those findings. Quote, "It's pretty dark and alarming." The survey, conducted at a virtual event held by Sonfeld's Chief Executive Leadership Institute, found little consensus about the risks and opportunities linked to AI. Sonfeld said the survey included responses from 119 CEOs from a cross-section of business, including Walmart, the CEO of Walmart, Doug McMillon, Coca-Cola CEO James Quincy, and the leaders of IT companies like Xerox, Zoom, as well as CEOs from pharma, media, and manufacturing companies. The business leaders displayed a sharp divide over how dangerous AI is to civilization. Now, 34% of these CEOs said that AI could potentially destroy humanity in 10 years, and 8% said that could happen in about 5 years, while 58% that could never say it could never happen and that they're not worried about it at all. So I might be part of that 58%. I don't think AI destroys humanity. I think it's not good. And it's not something that, again, I think it could be good for many things. It's not good if it's misused. And I think that's what we want to try to avoid, right? It's good to have a nuclear weapon, but nuclear proliferation, not such a good thing. I guess that's kind of where I stand on this as well. Anyway, your thoughts and more coming up, 833-4-VALDEZ. Plus, we've got Open Phone America at the top of the next hour. The phone number again, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Valdez. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez. We're going to quickly go to Todd in Atlanta, Georgia, WGKA. Go right ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to say your analogy about the icebox was good, but remember the icebox led to a lot of factories making refrigerators and repairing them and such. I don't know what's going to happen with all these people being put out of work. Where are they going to go? I mean, what's going to be the industry that takes well, them
I guess
up?
the same analogy, right? That they could learn how to write code, so they could write in ChatGPT, they could create AI. And program how the AI would work in different scenarios. I think that there's an opportunity for growth there. I think this is why we've heard so much about coding over the last several years. But again, talk to me about coding. I'm like, yeah, thanks. What kind of, is that like a metal coating? Is that like a aluminum coating? What kind of coating you're talking about? I wouldn't know the first thing about coding, but thank you, Todd. I agree with you. Interesting point. Where do they go if they don't turn to tech? Anyway, Open Phone America starts right now, folks. Get your calls in early. I'm looking forward to chatting with you. Lots to talk about tonight. 833-4-VALDEZ.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez. Hour number 3, it's the Wednesday night edition. Welcome to the program, 833-4-VALDEZ. This is the Open Phone America part of the program where you call in and let your voice be heard on any of the topics that we've discussed or anything that's on your mind. That's the idea behind Open Phone America, a tradition started by the late Larry King back in 1978. Consequently, that was the year I was born. And maintained that tradition here on this program by Jim Bohannon for 3 decades. And we continue that same tradition with Open Phone America on America at Night. So you're welcome to join us. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. Or on social media, you can drop us a comment at Rich Valdez with an S. Now, I want to get into a few things. One, I want to give you a recap on a few things. I want to share a story, because this is an interesting story. At least it's interesting to me. And maybe you can relate to this a little bit. But I was driving on one of those highways that has traffic lights every half a mile or so, maybe even a quarter mile. For anybody who knows the Northeast and knows New Jersey, I was on Route 46 East, traveling through Little Ferry, so just near Hackensack. Anyway, bottom line is I'm driving, and I see, and it's afternoon traffic, about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and all of a sudden I see like Rin Tin Tin, like Canine Cop, like a beautiful German Shepherd, one of those, really big ones that the police use. And he's running in between the cars on the opposite side of the traffic. And then he jumps in front of one, and then he doubles back, and he's running towards my car, and he jumps in front of my car, and I swerve out of the way. I put my hand out the window to let the truck that was next to me know, hey, don't keep going past me because there's a dog coming. But how much of that could I say other than the universal, I stick my hand out the window and hope for the best while letting the horn blare. And he stopped and he pulled to the side. The dog went over to the side, so I pulled over to the side. And I'm actually yelling at the dog, just like I yell at talk radio when I don't agree with it. And I'm like, what are you doing? You're going to kill yourself. You're going to cause an accident. What's wrong with you? And I'm hoping that some human shows up and identifies himself as the owner so I could say, and you're a schmuck too for not having your dog on the leash. But no human arrives. And I'm looking at this dog, and I'm like, hey, come here, good boy, come on. And he comes over, and he, puts his 2 front paws up on my window there, my driver's side door, and I see that he's in really rough shape. I don't know if he'd gotten hit by a car, but clearly he was disoriented. He was exhausted. He looked like he was thirsty. It was really hot. So I felt bad. So I get out, and I'm like, maybe, the owner's coming. Maybe he jumped out of somebody's car. Maybe he was in, a convertible or something and jumped out. I don't know. But a woman passes by, and she pulls over behind me, and I go, hey, is this your dog? And she's like, no, I saw that, he was running on the highway, and I wanted to help him. I was like, well, here he is. And I thought that was my cue to leave. And she says, oh, but I don't have my cell phone on me. And I we should probably call 911 or something. And I was like, well, I don't think it's an emergency, but I'll call the local police and let them know we have it, and they could come take the dog and do whatever they do. So I call the local police, and, they tell me, oh, yeah, we'll send somebody right over. And then in the same breath, he says, actually, we're not going to be able to send anybody over. Is there for like 15 minutes? And by that time, the dog was going to run away, of course. So he asks me, is there any way that you could get the dog here to our precinct? Because I told him where I was, and he said that was about 2 minutes away from the location. So I said, okay, great. I will bring you the dog if necessary. First, I turned to the woman and I said, hey, are you able to bring the dog? She said, I would, but I don't have my cell phone. I don't know where I'm going without the GPS, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, my goodness. So I'm telling the guy, I'm like, look, she doesn't know where she's going. And then the dispatcher tells me, well, any chance you could bring the dog straight to animal control, which is 2 towns over, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, look, I can't do that. I'm not even going in that direction. I'm going in a different direction. I've got to get some work done. I'll bring him to you because it's 2 minutes from here, and that I could see on my GPS. And while I'm having this conversation, my door is open, and guess who decides to get in my car? This dog who looks just like Rin Tin Tin Canine Cop, this big German Shepherd, probably about 110 pounds. And he's now in the back, and he's laying down, I guess, cooling off in the air conditioner. And I'm like, oh, wow. Oh, I guess I said, all right, I guess I'm bringing him to you, officer, because he's in my car. So now I'm driving with this dog I don't know, and I'm thinking, I hope he doesn't, lean over and bite me. Hopefully he thinks I'm a good guy. So I'm driving with, one eye open there, bringing this dog in the back of my car. And I love dogs, by the way, but I don't love every single dog. Right? I don't like dogs that stink. I don't like dogs shedding all over the place. Dog hair and dander is it's an issue for me. I get allergies. So, I wasn't really thrilled about any of that. And I don't particularly enjoy a dog that just jumps in your car. But there I am. So I drive to the place. I get there. The cop gives me a hard time telling me, look, I don't know what you want us to do. We're not the pet shop. What do you mean? The police. There's a dog that jumped into my car. He says, well, all we can do is call animal control. And I said, oh, I see you. Oh, okay. Well, you call animal control. In the meantime, we can get him out of my car. So the other cop comes over and helps me tries to help get this dog out of my car. And Rin Tin Tin doesn't want to go anywhere. Refuses to move. In fact, considered it on one occasion, kind of tiptoed to the edge and then said, nah, it's cooler in here. I'm good. Right. It started to rain outside. There was some thunder. The dog was not having it. So he backs up even further from the open door that I have, where I'm like trying to woo him out of the car and tell him, hey, you're a good boy. Come on, making the kissy sound. Nothing works. So I said, all right, well, if he's backed up in that corner, I'll just go around and open the other door. So I opened the other door. I'm like, all right, come on. Dog ain't moving. Buddy doesn't want to move anywhere. So I open. Now, both my back doors are open on my SUV. And the cop's at one door, I'm at the other door, and we're trying to get him out. Come on, smacking our thigh, like, hey, come on, buddy, come on out. Nothing works. So what does the dog do? He doesn't like it. He decides, I'm going to go in the passenger seat. And he goes to the passenger seat. Now there's more hair, more slobber, more claw marks all over the interior of my car. And now he goes over to the driver's seat. And this was the funniest part, right? I'm thinking, this dog won't get out of the car. There's not a cop here that can actually get him out of the car. Everybody's trying. Nobody's succeeding. And now he thinks he's funny, and he gets into the driver's seat. It was kind of cute, honestly. But, making a mess all along the way. So ultimately, we're there for an hour and about 10 minutes when a female police officer was leaving, like off duty, and he says, he calls her over and says, hey, maybe you'll have some luck. And I don't know how it worked or how, but she started talking to the dog. He did the same thing to her he did to us. He went the other way, but I went to the other door, and I said, come on, you can do it. I believe in you. Come on, buddy. And he came out of the car. And I was so happy, and I was like, all right. And I started closing the doors. Then he tried to sneak back in, and then, then we had to corral him into this garage they had. It was such a to-do. It really was such a big deal. But that was my story with this doggy. And the cop kept telling me, look, the dog really, really seems to have picked you. You should just take him. Just keep the dog. And he didn't have a tag on. He had a collar on, but he didn't have a tag on. So I don't know if they were going to, how they were going to locate his owners or whatever. But ultimately, I wasn't able to, I didn't want to keep the dog. He seemed like a really sweet dog, but I wasn't going to keep him. But the whole time I was thinking, like the movies or like the cartoons, how do you get a dog to get distracted? You throw him a steak, right? And so I was thinking, if I had a steak that I could throw this dog, man, we'd be in way better shape. But I didn't have a steak. But you know what? You can have a whole bunch of steaks. Why? Because there's a Father's Day special from Omaha Steaks coming up. And these are perfectly aged, always tender, and guaranteed delicious. So forget the dog. We're talking about your dad now. This is the good stuff. Father's Day is one of those big days where you want to put a smile on your big guy's face. And the way you do it is with the hand-selected packages at omahasteaks.com. All you got to do is use promo code GRILL, GRILL, when you check out, and you're going to get $30 off your qualifying order. You can choose from a variety of mouth-watering packages. These include fork tender bacon-wrapped filet mignon. This is delicious. We have the other gourmet grillables like the air-chilled boneless chicken breasts, the burgers, the jumbo franks, and many more. Don't forget, save room for dessert. Most of these packages come with 4 delicious caramel apple tartlets. Listen, I know I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. So go to omahasteaks.com, use code GRILL. When you check out, you're going to get $30 off this unforgettable gift. And this is guaranteed to make your dad's day the best day it can be. Now, one thing we know about dads is that they like steak. So whether he's your father, your father-in-law, or just a father figure, he's the guy who's always ready to step up when you need him the most. Get him a steak. This Father's Day, show him that love with the only gift that's as unforgettable as he is, the mouth-watering perfection of Omaha Steaks. From perfectly aged, tender steaks to hand-selected gift packages. Omaha Steaks makes it easy to give your dad what he really wants. Order today and get $30 off with the promo code GRILL, GRILL. And every purchase is backed by their unconditional money-back guarantee. So go to Omaha Steaks right now, and I'll be right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. It's Rich Valdez keeping you company all night long, 10 p.m. Eastern to 1 a.m. That's my daily shift where I get to keep you company, and I love it, and I'm always looking forward to speaking with you. 833-4VALDEZ is the phone number. Before I get to your calls, I want you to hear a clip of Chuck Todd from NBC News. You know Chuck Todd. He is the, I guess, soon-to-be former host of Meet the Press. And Chuck Todd was very upset over what he thought was a bizarre moment of Hispanics greeting former President Trump yesterday in Miami when he went and bought everybody lunch at the Versailles Bakery and Coffee Shop, Cuban spot in Miami, over there in the Calle Ocho area. And same type of cuisine as the place I go to every day. And again, yeah, my family is from Puerto Rico, but I love some Cuban pastry, some Cuban coffee. I love that stuff. And Chuck Todd apparently does not. So I want you to hear what Chuck Todd had to say.
Look, surreal. We've always run out of adjectives to describe anything Donald Trump does, but my word, I mean, we've not seen something like this in the United States before, where a political figure like this is under legal threat and he goes to celebrate, and there are people there ready to celebrate, and we've seen this take place in other countries where you've had corrupt, political figures accused of corruption do this, and sometimes they've had success, sometimes they've had failure. It's a very familiar scene to South Floridians watching sometimes the politics of Central and South America, where you see these moments. But clearly he is wrapping himself in this sort of, there is a faction of South Florida very conservative MAGA Hispanics who are very much rally around, sort of almost see common cause of the injustices.
Hang on a second there, Chuck. What's a MAGA Hispanic? What is a MAGA Hispanic? Now, if there is such a thing, can I be a MAGA Hispanic? I go by liberty-loving Latino amigo, but I don't mind being a MAGA Hispanic, right? A Hispanic who wants to make America great again. It doesn't sound too bad to me. But, I find it interesting. He says these South Floridians, this is a scene they're used to in Central and South America. Now, it's true. There are a lot of Venezuelans and Argentinians and Cubans and Brazilians that are all over Miami. But what makes this so familiar to them? I don't remember the last time there was a dictator that went to a Cuban coffee shop and was prayed for and praised for his leadership. I just don't remember. Maybe Chuck Todd can remind us. Let's continue.
America with Cuba and Venezuela, and he's trying to wrap himself in this, in the sort of the folks who claim they're exiles in the exile community, and it's a real perversion of what the exile community used to fight for. I mean, this is what makes it so surreal to see it here in the United States. We were the safe haven for those that were escaping moments like this. It's just, what a bizarre moment.
What a bizarre moment. Chuck Todd extremely upset over Hispanics greeting Trump. Now, I don't know if he's more upset that they're Hispanics or he's more upset that people are greeting Trump. But, this is something all too familiar with me. I realize that, people have always taken exception to the fact that I am of Hispanic heritage and that I've been a conservative most of my life, right? I, as an adult, at least, as long as I could vote, I've voted for Republicans typically. And not that they're always conservative either. I can draw a lot of contrast with many Republicans and take exception to many. But my point is, what's going on here, Chuck? Is it that you don't like the Hispanics? Is this now an attack on Hispanics? Like, I used to like Hispanics up until they started liking Trump. Now they like Trump. Now I don't like them. What is going on here? Well, I want to get into that because he wasn't the only one. Good old Congresswoman AOC, all out crazy, my least favorite Congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens. She chimed in on this too. So it wasn't just NBC anchor Chuck Todd who was appalled by the sight of Hispanic supporters greeting President Trump at a Miami restaurant after leaving the courtroom, but it was also AOC and people that are declaring this a perversion are sick, in my opinion. So anyway, we're going to get to the AOC audio momentarily upon our return. But I want to give you the phone number if you want to chime in on this topic. I'd love to get your thoughts on it, 833-4-VALDEZ. We're going to do your calls and more. Plus, we got this clip from AOC who goes on to talk about how, the real Hispanics, the real victims of oppression, they know and they can see right through Trump, right? And it just fascinates me that this is still the news of the day where it's old news to me. The guy went there, some people prayed for him, he went on his way, and he bought everybody lunch. Yet this is somehow a big deal to AOC and Chuck Todd. Well, we're going to get into it. 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-4-VALDEZ. I got a lot more audio and a lot more to discuss, so don't go anywhere. Keep it locked right here. I am Rich Valdez, and we're coming right back.
I want to listen to you, Rich, all the time.
America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
This case isn't going to be settled legally in a cafe. It's going to be settled in the court based on the facts and law.
The folks in the control room, I don't need to see any more of that. He's trying to turn this in. He's trying to turn it into a spectacle, into a campaign ad. That's enough of that. We've seen it already.
That is Jake Tapper, who I like to call Fake Tapper on CNN, who has decided to cut the feed of Trump praying with the folks at the Cuban restaurant and saying hello and offering to buy them lunch, saying, I don't need to hear any more about that. We can't stand El Trumpito over here. And, of course, he then pivots to AOC, asking her a question of what's going on with your people, right? What's going on with how did they become conservative MAGA Hispanics? Or going back to Chuck Todd, listen to what Chuck Todd said. He said, it's a real perversion of what the exile community used to fight for. I mean, this is what makes it so surreal to see here in the U.S. We were the safe haven for those that were escaping moments like this. No, sir, you pendejo. What we're escaping is the left, which you are. Each and every one of you are, including AOC, all out crazy. My least favorite Congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, and AOC all out crazy said this.
First of all, I just want to, the Little Havana stop, that cafe, Versailles Cafe, one of the reasons we're told by his folks why he was there is because the Cuban American people know from political persecution. And I wondered how you might interpret that and what you think of that.
Well, I think it's it's not a surprise. During Trump's remarks, he was trying to somehow pin this as some great Marxist conspiracy. But the fact of the matter remains that this is an individual who retained U.S. national security secrets, nuclear weapons locations or, nuclear site locations, sensitive materials, and put our nation at risk. And frankly, this is beyond just the Cuban community, the Latino community writ large in the United States also has a profound sense of patriotism.
AOC, I just have to say, she sounds so swift in saying this. This is an individual. No, this is not an individual. While he is an individual, this is a former president of the United States who will have security clearance you'll never have. This is a person that has declassification authority. This is a person that is, in effect, the executive branch according to the Constitution. So to say that he put the United States in peril, where's the peril? Where's the charge? Right? They're not even charging him with that. They're saying conspiracy to violate the Espionage Act. They don't have any clear violation of the Espionage Act, but she just puts it out there to continue to misinform people. And Fake Tapper and the rest of these clowns like Chuck Todd, they sit there and just nod their head up and down like exactly what they are, mindless numbskulls.
And understands right from wrong, and from understanding political persecution, knowing that this is not it.
Clearly, you have to be a special kind of stupid to try and turn to somebody, a Cuban American, right? Let's just use them. That's who they were talking about. That's who I'll talk about. I know plenty of Cubans. I've had plenty of Cuban girlfriends. Now, listen to me. Talk to a Cuban and ask them if any one of their family members was a political prisoner. I can guarantee you somebody in their family was. And those that can say, oh, my dad, my mom, my grandma, somebody very close to their family, these people don't come out of these political prison camps and tell them, oh, no, it's fine. That's part. No. They warn them like they've never been warned before. And when you speak with someone that was a political prisoner, the last thing they do is look at Trump and go, oh, this guy, he's exactly what we escaped from. It's the exact opposite. They look at Fake Tapper. They look at Chuck Todd. They look at everybody else that's part of this left-wing ecosystem that mimics communist Cuba, where you have state television, state media saying the same thing over and over and over, trying to create a bad guy out of somebody for retaining presidential records that he's allowed to maintain under the Presidential Records Act, trying to turn things that aren't crimes into crimes. So, yes, these people do know what political persecution looks like. They do know what a phony prosecution looks like. And that's exactly why they were there en masse in the Versailles restaurant with their hands on Trump, praying for him, asking God Almighty for guidance and protection, because they know that's the only thing that can fight the amount of evil that's coming against Trump. Because they know they've dealt with that evil. Anyway, let's hit the phones. Jane, Saratoga, New York, WGDJ. Go right ahead.
Hey, Rich. Yeah, you are so right. I mean, AOC, no one listens to that idiot, do they, really? I mean, she's just an angry little creepy woman. And,
she's the second coming of Bernie Sanders.
Oh, God, that's an insult to Bernie Sanders. I grew up in Miami, and my boyfriend was from Cuba, and most of my friends we used to hang out in Little Havana, and the people there are wonderful, and Trump was well known. He used to go into Miami a lot, and the people there know him, and they love him, and they trust him. And I thought it was great. I spoke with my friends in Florida and said, what did you think of what they said? That was so amazing that he stopped and just said hello to everyone and reached out. And they said that's who he is, that the people love him. And these idiots, my heavens, I thought it was great. And I know the people do love him. And Little Havana in Miami, the people there are friendly. And they want to embrace people and not sit there and pick them apart. AOC is such a creep, I swear.
Let me ask you something, Jane, because I find it interesting. So you grew up in Miami. You're familiar with the Cuban people. Did you ever get a sense from being around Cubans that they didn't have a sense of how to detect communism, authoritarianism. I think they could smell a dictator coming a mile away.
Of course they can. Yeah, they're very, very savvy about people that aren't sincere. If somebody would come to, because I was a young reporter there also, and if anybody would come to the area who really was not sincere, you would just see the people get very, very quiet and just stare at them and kind of glare. They wouldn't talk. They wouldn't speak with the people. They would just ignore them until the people went away. Of course, they're very savvy about what's going on. I mean, I used to go out on the causeway when people were coming from Cuba, and I would help meet some of the boats that were coming in. And those people, of course, they know what that is and what it's all about. And I think it's insulting what all of those people said. And I know
I do
for a
too.
fact.
And that's why I was asking you, because again, I'm biased in this, of course, but you having grown up there, I wanted to get your perspective on it, because I think AOC, in essence, is saying Cuban voters who understand political persecution know that Trump is not it. I think that's a lie, and I think it's offensive. I think Chuck Todd, saying it's a real perversion of what the exile community used to fight for. And there's a quote, I mean, that is what makes it so surreal to see here in the U.S. We were the safe haven for those that were escaping moments like this. Sir, how dumb can you be? We're still that safe haven, but that safe haven is eroding more and more each day as we're doing it to our own people now. And it's amazing to me that they don't see it, or they're just willfully playing dumb.
They don't want to. They have no desire to look at anything good or positive that ties to Trump. And I guarantee those people there adore him. I know my friends in Florida said, oh, my God, it was so awesome when he showed up. And it was, So.
And it seems like they're willing to drag me and my family, your friends, any Hispanic. Now they're calling us conservative MAGA Hispanics, right? We even have our own moniker now, which I feel like eventually this will become like domestic violent extremist, or, anything else that they could say to minimize one's ethnicity and go ahead and say, well, no, because that's a conservative MAGA Hispanic. That's a MAGA Hispanic, so they don't count. And it's just insane to me, Jane. Thank you for the call. Big shout out to everybody in Saratoga, New York, WGDJ. Folks, we're going to get to your calls and more straight ahead. The phone number, 833-4-VALDEZ, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
The response that we've seen in polling from Republicans suggests that they're going to stick with him, that it's more of a cult than a political party at this point, and they're going to stick with their leader. So I think that actually President Biden is in a very strong position to run a campaign that doesn't have to talk about him. But I think other Democrats should, and other, concerned Americans should be asking hard questions. But to talk about, the kind of future that builds on his accomplishments. I have said now for months that Joe Biden had a remarkable first 2 years as president. I don't think he gets the credit for it. And in part, that's because he's not a performer. He's a producer.
Joe Biden is not my producer. I want to make that clear. I've got Alex Hinton here and Count Delacula. I've got Rich Cementa and Bill Barnett, and these guys are great producers, but no, definitely not Joe El Baboso Biden. Of course, now she starts this off saying, I think they're a cult and they're going to follow their leader. These are the chilling sounds of Hillary Rodham Clinton. And she's referring to Donald Trump and the Republican Party. Now, I think we could make the same analogy and say, no, she's talking about the Democrats and Joe Biden. And she even references Joe Biden. But then she goes to make a plug. So it's clear that she's talking about the Republican Party and El Trumpito. Now, the issue I take with Madam Clinton here is that Madam Clinton thinks that we are a cult, but I don't think we're a cult. But again, there's many on my side that think that she's in a cult. So I get that part of it. I do get that part of it. But what many of us don't understand is why things are so crazy. Anyway, what was the segue we were doing here? I want to get to the rest of your calls. And we're going to go to Ken in Lansing, Michigan. WILS. Go right ahead, Ken.
Hey, Rich, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great, brother. Thanks.
Hey, I first started hearing your voice on the Mark Levin show, the great one, as his producer, and then you would sit in for him at times when he wasn't there. So now you have your own show. You have approved everybody. You can multitask with the best of them, my friend. So,
thank you, Ken. That's very kind of you.
Well, you know what? If it's real, it's real, bro. It is what it is. So, you're
amen
doing a good
to that.
job. But I am so thoroughly disgusted as a 66-year-old American as to what's going on in this country. It makes me want to pull what little hair I got out of my head. I just can't believe that we have a media that is so in bed with the dirty, corrupt Democrats that it's just, it's like pulling teeth with a pair of tweezers to get any kind of information out that's truthful. This form, I can't remember the name of the form, but the ones they just got the other day, they just delayed until they were threatened with a subpoena to turn it over. But I heard Ted Cruz on Mark's show tonight. I heard Ted Cruz and a Senator Holly talking to one of the very top guys in the FBI, questioning him to why, because it's not classified, he can't answer the question if there are 17 tapes that they have in their possession of Joe Biden taking bribes along with Hunter. And the guy just stonewalled both of them. He just a complete jackass of a liar. And he's at the top of our federal government. It blows my mind, Rich, that we've come to this point in America where the federal government's top law enforcement agency is as corrupt as a drug dealer on the corner.
I think, Ken, we've been there for way longer than many of us want to think. I think we were there during Watergate. I think we were there during the JFK administration. I think this level of corruption has existed for a very long time, and it was hidden by the lack of communication that we had. We didn't have television as much as we do now. We didn't have the internet the way we do now. And now that information is so accessible and it's so easy, I could text 10 people and I get 10 texts an hour from people telling me, oh, did you hear this? Did you hear about that? Did you hear they have a recording? It's information abounds now. So it's so difficult to pull the wool over the sheep's eyes, the wool, excuse me. And I think this is why we're seeing what we see. But I think the problem of corruption in government, honestly, is as old as government itself. And even one of the oldest governments, I did a show on this once, ancient Rome and the early governments that they had instituted, there was always a problem of corruption. And they referred to it back then as ambitus, AMBITUS. And ambitus was described as the built-in corruption that's a part of the system, whether we like it or not. And today we call it the deep state, but ambitus, deep state, whatever it is, it seems like it's here to stay, and it's our job to fight it tooth and nail. Ken, I agree with you. I think we're in bad shape, and in order for us to get better, we've just got to pick the right people that care about this country, the right people that care about doing the right thing, and the right people that are willing to stand up to do what's right. Anyway, folks, more from your calls and a couple of other headlines. Ken, thank you for the call from Lansing, Michigan. Big shout out to everybody listening on WILS. And, of course, thank you for your kind words as well. Coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. He's brown, he's bald, and he's breaking it down. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Diane, listening on WGN in Chicago, listens on the overnights. Diane, go right ahead very quickly.
Hi, Rich. You're very much appreciated. Jim Bohannon,
thank you.
Spoke well of you, of course, as you know, and he was so great. Well, anyway, I have so many opinions on like deep state and et cetera, and I'm a baby boomer. I remember I voted for Nixon, and sort of the thing is, the idea of the common Joe looking with what you might term the corruption. There's a different type of corruption. What the deep state is more of that military-industrial warning that Eisenhower gave. But anyway, I wanted to just say that regarding those, what Donald Trump said, something about when they say that they have him on some recording, it was connected with the Mark Meadows, something with Mark Meadows. Well, that would be that aide, that Cassidy Hutchinson, right, who
made stuff up.
Young lady who spoke right. I figure whoever eavesdropped on his conversation, that's a problem in itself. But anyway, I think when he said in there that I had, as a president, he was showing somebody something, and he said, when I was president, I could have declassified them, but he cannot now.
Right, and we don't know that he unclassified them at that time or not. Diane, thank you for your kind words and your comment. We'll discuss it more if you can call back tomorrow. Hasta la próxima.